Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome, everybody. It's the Books That Make You show. I'm Desiree Duffy, your host, and we're talking about books that make you walk the streets of New York with a few mad women. And then you go on to getting rich as a woman. Authors have many facets, and sometimes they write books that cross over many different genres: fiction, nonfiction, spooky stuff, not so spooky stuff, self-help, feminist literature. And yet there's often this common through line that you can find if you look close enough. And that's what we have with our guest today, Sara Connell. She is a best-selling author and the founder of Thought Leader Academy, where she helps coaches, writers, entrepreneurs, helps them to become successful published authors, TEDx, in-demand speakers. She is also the author of several books, two of which released last year, and both were honored with BookFest Awards. Congratulations on that. We have The Science of Getting Rich and Ghost House. Sara Connell, OMG, you've got a lot going on. Welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, let's start. I mentioned to you as we were getting going, for those of you who are watching on the YouTube channel, some folks just listen, but if you ever watch, you know we have the chalkboard wall behind us, and we always draw something evocative of the cover. And I went with Ghost House because it's got all these swirls and wispiness, and it's just very evocative of I feel like women and what they go through. And then we jump over to your other book, which is Helping Women to Get Rich. So can you talk about that through line? Talk about what brings these books together for us.
Yes, because you don't normally think of a book of sort of satirical, spooky stories and Ghost House having a whole lot to do with sort of the personal development, women's empowerment, wealth movement. However, to me, there's really one thing happening in everything I write, and certainly in these two books, which is they're exploring women's agency, right? Where are women feeling empowered to choose and chart their own destiny? And where are we rubbing up against patriarchal structures or conditioning or ancestral things? So I'm really fascinated by this. Every trauma I've had in my life has been specifically around like being female. So that shows up in my work, both fiction and nonfiction. And in Ghost House, it's 9 stories, 9 different women. They're short stories, and women who are in whatever way pursuing a sense of personal choice in some capacity, whether that's in their career, in a relationship. And the stories are it's not horror, right? The genre I would call is speculative, magical, realist. Like the title story, a couple is looking for a new home, and it's become the cool thing to have a house with a ghost. And so on the surface, you could say it's a ghost story, and it's really the story about a marriage and what happens when, one person wants one thing and one person wants another. And we just have the ghost there as the antagonist in this case. And then in The Science of Getting Rich for Women, there's a book from the 1920s written by an old white guy, right? That's who got to write all the books then, and for the most part. And it's called The Science of Getting Rich. And I heard at the end of 2021 that women had lost $900 billion in the pandemic. That was the hit. And it's more now, right? Because we're a little bit, further on in time. And I was so enraged and frustrated. And I thought, I can sit here and, be mad, or I can do a tiny thing, right? Not the whole thing, to be part of an economic comeback for women. So really both books are about that empowerment journey.
Yeah, let's get into that. I want to learn more about the pay gap for women. And we've always heard it. It's always been there. The recent pandemic made that even more so. Can you talk about that?
For sure. So we've always heard, women make less than men, equally qualified men. But here's a couple of things that were surprising to me. First of all, just the actual numbers. White women. Okay, so I'm a white woman. So, I have the incredible privilege of 82% on the dollar to an equally, talented male counterpart. Women of color, it's 65%. Women of varying disabilities goes down in like the 40s, and we have all kinds of other, ways that we can analyze the data. So the point is that no matter where, already even in 2023, there is still a significant disparity in the pay gap. And what really startled me and why I wanted to write this book even more is that women freelancers experience the same pay gap. They're setting their own rates. So this is not just corporate America. This is not which is what really takes us into what's underneath this, which is what the Atlantic Monthly did the study on, the confidence gap and other gaps in our own sense of worth, our own being not only told we can do more, but being shown is so much more important, right? Like we need to see, women who are, if we care about finances, not everyone does, but if that is something that's important to you, that we need to see women doing it in ways that feel authentic, in ways that feel in integrity. A lot of my block was like, I would meet these jerky guys, they're like, I make so much money, this sort of like bro energy. And it's like, I don't want that. Like I'm a creative, I'm a compassionate human. I care about people. And so I think there's the movement of women's wealth and empowerment is really about creating power and wealth and agency and choice in a way that's honoring and authentic and in alignment with who we are, whether we identify as male, female, non-gendered, either way.
Yeah.
And that's really not important, the gender. It's more like, a new model of wealth creation, because wealth gives us choices and there's a power dynamic to having resources.
You touch on something that I just want to dig in a little bit deeper, because as women or those who identify as women, oftentimes I feel like we need to somehow apologize for wanting wealth. Yeah. We need to approach things as, for some reason, a woman who is driven by money or a desire to have money or wealth is somehow seen as a negative, whereas the dude, like you're talking about, the guys that do it, that's cool. Hey, I want to be like insert name of billionaire here. Yeah. We have these billionaires. They're men for the most part. We idolize them. Yeah. Women in the same situation, not so much.
Yeah. And it really reveals, I think that dichotomy reveals the underlying messaging, the kind of conditioning we have of somehow that's not appropriate, or that's not good, or that's not nurturing, or, there's somehow this like coldness to it or whatever, and it's like, why, is that really true? And the woman in Ghost House, in the first story, in the fiction book, she becomes a very successful sculptor and she starts making tons of money, and it creates this really hard dynamic in the marriage, right? And the husband wants the ghost house so he can flip it and earn money. That is at the core of their conflict. And so I think that we get to examine and just say, like, is this serving me? Is it serving us to think women are, not good if they desire wealth? I don't know who thinks, what I'd love is to be broke. What I'd love is like not to be able to travel, or to put my kid in a school if they need to be in a school, if we have children, or, like give to causes I care about. If we really think about what we might want to do with that increased prosperity, when I coach people, like I don't see them talking about doing anything except for giving more, contributing more, enjoying more. And, it's sort of like, what's bad about that?
Yeah. The science of getting rich. Can you dig into the science a little bit?
Yeah. So this was a play on, again, the Wallace Wattles 1920s book. So he called it The Science of Getting Rich. And I did deliberately want to play with that, because a lot of people, if you're in the personal growth, coaching space, you may be familiar with those types of book, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And, there's these books. And I had 4 female mentors send me those books. Like send me Wallace Wattles, Science of Getting Rich, and send me Napoleon Hill. And I thought, and they're very much written of their time, right? It's all he pronouns. It's all men examples. It's all titans of industry, men. And I thought, I don't feel like reading this book right now. Like I just was like, I sort of had that, I would love The Science of Getting Rich for women, and then my friend, I was sharing that and she said, well, yeah, go write it. Like I said, I'm sure someone's written this, and then no one had, right? So I did make an equation, because I think if you're going to call something, even in a play, playful referential way, if it says the science, there better be some science. So I interviewed 4 female neuroscientists. And they really talked about what it takes to dismantle some of that cultural conditioning that says it's not okay for women to have more, to want more, to achieve more. And then how do we really use neuroplasticity? I'm a neuroscience geek. So how do we use the fact that our brains and beliefs and identities even can be recreated to our advantage? And how do we do that so that we can feel great about it and support and champion other people and celebrate people creating wealth if that's what they want? And so I have these women that are top in their field. And then I created an equation about like, what is a framework we can use to create more financial abundance, especially as creatives, Desiree, right? Like this audience, we're book nerds. I was always like, I'm a writer. I don't know anything about money. Like if I saw an investing book, you couldn't pay me to go near it. Just like walking the other way, right? I just wasn't interested. And I think that that's okay. We don't have to learn about investing, but we pay a price to continue a starving artist, paradigm if that's not really going to allow us to live the full life that we want to live. So the equation is about being like this new identity, right? If Desiree, you're suddenly like, I'm $1 million author, or I'm a rich writer, or whatever, like would it be just kind of fun, like sort of stepping into that new identity? And then the book kind of shares some strategies to do so, and then releasing. That's where the neuroscientists came in. Like we can't just say affirmations and have something change.
I like that because a lot of times we hear about the affirmations, envisioning it, and it manifests. And that to me sounds wonderful. Yes. And I love my moments meditating and thinking, but I'm also a pragmatic and I want real answers, how do you make this stuff really happen?
Correct. Because the problem is with the visioning and affirmation, because I was doing that for a long time and I wasn't seeing anything change in my income. And so what I really looked at then was what's going on. They call it in certain techniques and studies, chaotic vibration. So again, I like sciencey terms. So I'm like, ooh, chaotic vibration. What's that? Well, that's where you made a vision board and you're in your dreamy time going, oh, picturing yourself, on the vacation or in the beautiful home or whatever that means to you, just buying something you love to eat, like whatever it is. But then there's this other energy, this underneath subconscious energy that we're not really aware of that's going, can't have that. You don't deserve it. Or nice people don't do that. Or creative people don't want wealth, or you can't be a great writer and have money, whatever the beliefs are, right? And so that releasing, and we do a lot of strategies in the book, and we created like a book portal with free resources for everybody to like do it, not just read it, and it's so important because then we can take actions. Then we can go pitch the book to the agent, or we can, get on the stage, or we can host a podcast or whatever. But until we clear out that chaotic vibration, it's like truly is like dragging, the backpack of bricks up the mountain. It's going to be really hard and slow.
Yeah. Chaotic vibrations. I love that terminology too. And you talk about taking the stage. Okay. We're kind of on a virtual stage here, and you've taken the TEDx stage and you help people to hone their speaking craft as well. Yep. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, because, books are always the core for me, right? Like I was probably like most of us here and this show, like reading voraciously as a child, always wanted to be an author, like all that was, and a book actually saved my life 20 years ago, which is, that was a real shock after loving books, that, another whole level of the power of books. And I believe that also speaking our story, speaking our message it is another medium to create change, to inspire, to transform, to entertain, whatever it might be. And so I think they go like twin flames, especially authors now podcasting, incredible platforms like this, right? We're invited as authors to go and share and be interviewed. And so a lot of people I work with, like that's not a comfortable milieu, right? At the beginning, it's like, oh, like I want it, but I'd love to do a podcast tour, but I'm really scared. And so helping people see, what is the craft of speaking our work, as well as writing it. And so I think that they're so entwined in such a beautiful way, and they sort of exponentially, again, I buy books off podcasts every week. There's not a week practically that goes by that I don't hear some great interview with someone, and I'm in the car, I pull over, okay, order a book, and I think it's just such a beautiful way to get our message out. So to empower people, and TEDx is a great brand. That's an example of, it's about ideas worth spreading. And just like I think many people have a calling, they know they have a book in them. I think a lot of people know that they have a TED Talk in them, and it's an incredible way to make an impact and also be seen as credible and visible as a leader in your industry. I mean, that's a mark of great credential to be on the TED website, right?
Yeah, it gives you that clout, that validation, and especially if one is an author of nonfiction or books that are positioning them as an expert within their industry, that rounds it out. You really are showing the full spectrum, and I think that's marvelous. You get the big picture as well as the small picture, Sara. But I'm going to dig even deeper because you went glazing by something.
Yeah.
You said a book saved your life 20 years ago?
This is wild. So again, I grew up, started journaling at 5, love books. And I got the message along the way, I don't know if anyone else listening, that I thought there was like this one way you knew you were allowed to be a writer. And that way was that a teacher took you aside and told you you're special. And, I know people this has happened to, like, oh my God, you're a natural writer. And like, that didn't happen for me. Right. And I do feel comfort. I heard Margaret Atwood interviewed recently, and she said something like, someone said, oh, did your 8th grade English teacher, think you were special? She's like, no, I'm sure she thought I was wholly unremarkable. And anyway, there was this teacher that was a famous writer I went to public school outside Washington, D.C. And I thought, this is when it's going to happen. He's going to recognize that this is my destiny and sort of knight me, if you will. Right. And he just didn't. Right. He liked other people's writing. And I decided at that point, I guess I'm out. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. So I went to college and read other people's books as an English major, and, went and got a job in advertising, which was sort of shadow creative, like sort of not really what I wanted to do, but semi-creative. And unfortunately, it was one of those times, it was right in the middle of the Me Too peak. And so it was a really traumatic and abusive environment for young women, and maybe some of the men too. I just knew that, what was happening to me and other people. And so very institutionalized by the company, just like be a team player, was sort of the response when you go to human resources about something. And so I really spiraled. I started getting into disordered eating. I felt depressed. I felt handcuffed because it was my first job. I'm a single woman on my own. I didn't know what else I could do to get paid and earn a living. And so one day I'm traveling from Boston to Chicago, catching a flight back to Chicago where I lived. And I see a bookstore, and I didn't have time. They're calling my flights. I couldn't read the back of the books. I just randomly grabbed a book, and it was a book called Holy Hunger by Margaret Bullitt Jonas. And I got on the plane. I read the whole book in one sitting. And as soon as I stayed up the whole night reading, and when I finished the last page, I said, that's it. I'm leaving this job. I don't care if I live on the street. I will not go back. And this woman, this story that she told, it wasn't my story, right? She wasn't the same. She had different stuff, but she was a woman who was experiencing trauma, and she got into this eating disorder, and she shared how she got out, how she got better. And I just said, that's what I'm going to do. And I called to get, went and got help for my mental and physical health, got that rebuilt. And I decided at that point that I was going to pay that gift forward. It's I've been talking about being a writer, but I haven't been writing. I did all the fantasizing about writing. I thought about writing. I went to the book things. I looked at books. I bought journals, but I wasn't sitting down and putting words on the page because I was so afraid of failing, afraid of not being good enough. And that book, I fully credit that book as saving my life.
That's a beautiful story. I love how oftentimes in our lives, the things that we need at that moment, they do come to us as long as we're willing to let them in. A book or a mentor or somebody along those lines.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's almost like the student is ready, teacher appears moment, something is just about to break. And I heard it right when I needed to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important for us to listen and be aware, be cognizant of when those things happen. Sometimes it's almost like the universe hits us over the head, right? You get that message again and you ignore it, and you get it again and you ignore it. So just be open to that. And because that's beautiful when that happens. and your situation, for example, I mean, look at you now compared to where you were.
Oh, I mean, it's funny because I moved abroad for a while and I'm back in Chicago now. And so I see that building, and I jokingly call it the Dark Tower. That's what our friends and I like refer to it. It's in a lot of movies because it's gorgeous, it's stunning, beautiful. It's on all the architectural tours on the Chicago River. And when I see it now, I think, wow, like, God, I'm so lucky, because I mean, that was my life and it was hell. I mean, truly, it felt like I was dying every time I walked in that building. And I just think, like, just what a gift to be liberated for, and free, and to have made a choice, because we believe we're trapped. And a lot of times we have more choice than we think. And that's, again, a lot of the women in Ghost House go through that in various stages, whether it's again, the relationship, a job, something where it seems like this is it. Like, I can't see how to get myself out of this. And then, there's a move. Finally, there's something where it's like, I just have to try. Right. And often, most of the time, thankfully, life is so benevolent and there is a way.
Exactly. It's golden handcuffs. We've all heard that term.
For sure.
In the corporate world, if they hold us, and then you realize that you have the key for your own handcuffs.
You can just take these things off right now. Yes, totally.
Yeah. All right. I want to talk more about Ghost House, because you have all these stories and all these narratives, and a little bit dark, but you're keying in on the idea of the Madwoman too, as an archetype. Yeah. Can you talk about
Well, okay. So I'm a big, when I was kind of coming up in high school and college, like, I couldn't get enough of the Brontes and, a lot of the Madwomen in the attic, stories, right? If anyone read Wide Sargasso Sea, which is sort of the, the offshoot of the Madwoman in Jane Eyre. And and it's also, again, this is back to the chronic pathologizing of women, right? Calling women hysterical, always it's something wrong, if you have a feeling or you have, desires or all these things. So I'm fascinated by this. I go back to it over and over. And I really feel like that archetype is almost a character in the collection, because it's like the women are wrestling, either feeling maybe they feel crazy or people are telling them that they're too much. A big thing in my family growing up is I was too much. Like, I had too many feelings. I was too intense. And I think a lot of kids who maybe are creative, depends on what family you were raised in. My family was not interested in that. Like, that wasn't a welcome thing. And so I really felt terrible about myself for a long, long time. And now I love that I'm intense. I love that I have lots of feeling. I love that I'm passionate, because it lets me create and also serve people, really support people in the coaching side. And I share all that because the Madwoman, what's so fun about that archetype is, yes, there's a point at which she is pathologized and contained, but then there's the moment when, in Jane Eyre, for example, she burns the place down, and like, there's a moment of power, and there's a moment, and also she's not then restricted to the rules of society. If you're already the Madwoman, then it's almost like game on. Like, what do I feel like doing? So we've heard many people maybe grew up hearing urban legends and ghost stories about the woman in white. There's always this woman in white, the woman of the lake, the woman. So I play on that in one of the stories. And it's really about this narrator in the story realizes, like, she's just going to go for it and become that. Like, people are kind of trying to put a lot of labels on her and judge her for things. And suddenly she kind of gets like, I could lean in. It's almost like playing the game Hearts. If anyone's played the card game Hearts, and, you might be losing, but you have this one move of shooting the moon, they call it. And it's like, I feel like that's the play that she does in that story. She's just like, I'm going to flip this around to a win. Right. Like, and then her power, there's a power in the Madwoman in the attic, because you come out of the attic and it's like, no one gets to, they've already judged you. So you can be whoever you want. So I love her.
Yes. I love her too. And I love that, just owning it and embracing that power. When you work with folks, I'm curious, because you have this advertising, this creative background, so many different things coming together. What are some of the words of wisdom or advice you give to somebody, especially authors or creatives who, so a lot of them are shy. They don't want to take that stage. They don't want to be seen. What do you say to them?
Well, what I love is that I would say 90% of the women that I have the gift of coaching, and this is true about me, are introverts or ambiverts, meaning you're mostly an introvert, but if if I'm at a writing conference, I'll be an extrovert for that 24 hours. Like, woo, let's hang out. Like I'll be up all the, but otherwise don't ever ask me to go to a wedding. I don't want to, I don't want to do it. Social anxiety. So I think that the liberation for me was that there's always an authentic way to be visible and show up. And so I'm really committed to not giving people like you have to do this if you want to sell lots of books, but more, who are you? And what way do you naturally, like, if you were going to show up to something? So for example, like I have clients who would never want to do TEDx. They would never want to be on a conference, keynote, but they would love a podcast. They truly feel like if I'm just getting to be here and talking about the work, that feels really cozy. And so it's finding whether it's a social media platform or a format or a vehicle where I do think, love it or not, as authors today, we don't just get to be hermits, at least all the time. I love my hermit time. But, there are times when if we do want people to know about the book, either us or someone on our behalf will want to let people know about it. Right. So I really am delighted because I so far have coached hundreds of people at this point, and we've never not been able to find a way for someone that feels like an aligned way that they could show up and share about. Some people even use pen names and then they just do non-video podcasts, right? There's always a way. Mm-hmm. So I think that to reassure everyone that it doesn't have to look, you might see some author doing and think, oh, I don't even want to be an author if I have to do that. And you don't have to do that. There'll be something that will feel authentic. And it's just sussing that out and then holding hands with other supportive, loving people so that it is scary. I sweated. First time I did a Facebook Live, I sweated through my clothes. I was like, oh my God. I don't know what I thought was going to happen, but it felt terrifying.
Yeah.
It felt terrifying. And so it's just not doing it alone and sort of having some really wonderful, whether it's mentor or community or support for people to help you explore what's the way that you like. And then doing it that way.
Being authentic and finding your own groove is so important. I know authors that are like, oh, I need to be on TikTok. Everybody tells me I have to be on TikTok. I'm like, okay, are you going to start dancing and be a creative?
Right.
They're like, no, I can't do that. It's like, well,
that's not going to work for you.
To do it. Right.
Yes. If you love NPR, then you're going to want to be on some podcasts and some, just like very Terry Gross, welcome you to the show, do your podcast voice. And and that's the thing, because I think the danger is either people stop before they start because they go, I don't want to dance on TikTok, and think they would have to become an author, or that they make themselves go do those things and then feel yucky because it doesn't feel good to, like, I would feel very ridiculous on certain platforms. It would just be silly. But then other platforms, I feel like I could do it all day long. Don't even think about it.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job right now on this platform. Thank you so much, Sara. Can you tell us what's coming up next? Are there more books? Are you doing conferences?
Yes. So we've got all kinds of great stuff. I run a training like every other month usually, which is really for people that are they really know they've got that spark. The big magic has come. You've got a book in you. And so it's the best-selling book intensive. And what we do in those three, it's online. People can come in their pajamas. It's just super easy and fun. And what's great is we often will get more done for people in those 3 days than in 3 months, because everyone has the chance to really clarify a book idea. They learn a very powerful book outline and structure framework I use that accelerated. It used to take me forever. I would see these people writing a book every year, and I was like, who does that? It takes me years. And now I can, I really wanted to do a book a year. I really did. I was like, I want to do that. I couldn't understand how it could ever happen. And I'm on track for that. My next one comes out in October. It's really about thought leadership, what we're talking about here today, putting together all the pieces, yes, writing, but speaking in some form. And how do you find the audience? Because people want to make an impact with the book, right? So that's like the third really important part of our thought leadership work is building and finding the community of those readers that you're here to serve and inspiring them and loving on them. And they can't wait for the next thing you put out. And then finally, fourth, monetizing the mission. So in the Best-Selling Book Intensive, we focus on a book. We focus on outlining, mapping, a lot of mindset, believing you can do it, how to make the time. So people leave with the book already started, fully mapped out, and with a complete plan to go through publication. It's like, here's, we've got the roadmap now, drilled down, customized. So that's coming up. We've got one in September, and then we've got at least one or two more this year. So that's kind of an ongoing. But I'm really excited about, back to my theme of apparently constantly having to take like the female lens to things. There was a whole slew of books that have come out in the last few years about 10x, this concept of 10 times, whether it's 10 times more money or 10 times more success or 10 times more joy, or and they're all written by men. And so I was like, I want to play with the 10x for women, because it's going to look different and it's going to be different and feel different. And so that's the new book that I'm just wildly excited to be writing now.
Oh, and I can't wait for that book to come out. We'll have to have you come back and tell us about that. Sara, let folks know where they can go to find you, your website, find your book, social media.
Absolutely. So Instagram is my, that's my main. I'm not so much on TikTok, but at Sara Connell, and if you're watching my video, you can see I'm Sara without an H. And so at Sara Connell on Instagram. And then our website is very easy as well, saraconnell.com. So you are all welcome. We have tons of free resources. Any of your listeners and audience can come to the Best-Selling Book Intensive as my gift. Just message our team and we'll gift that training to you. And I'm just a big believer in making things available to everyone. I just think it's so important because I didn't have anything to invest in myself at the beginning. Like I just didn't have any of that put together. And I think that the cool part about now where we can do virtual trainings and we don't have like size limits, it's not like only 10 people can fit in the room. It's such it's hard to live virtually sometimes, but it's also such a gift. So just absolutely everyone's welcome to contact us any of those places and we'll make sure that we gift you something that would be inspiring and fun this fall.
Thank you for that, Sara. That's very generous of you. Appreciate that. Yeah. And thank you for being on the show. Appreciate you joining us. We'll have you come back.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for being with us as well. Again, my name is Desiree Duffy. This is the Books That Make You show. You can find out more about us at booksthatmakeyou.com. Also, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook, we are on TikTok, and we're on YouTube. So if you're listening right now, take a moment and find us on YouTube. Subscribe. Please ring the bell, make some comments and things below. All of that really helps the channel to grow and grow, to reach more folks just like Sara and authors and creatives and people that want to go out there, be creative, get rich, and step onto that stage. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.